You may know the headlines, the medals, the red carpets, and the applause. But for these public figures, visibility came with a deeper cost. Each of these celebrities became visible in a different way, and each story changed how audiences understood transgender lives. This is not a scandal countdown. It is a story about identity, pressure, dignity, and the courage to live honestly in public even when the world was not ready, kind, or informed. Tell us where you're watching from, and what time it is there right now. Caitlyn Jenner. The long journey toward becoming her true self. The world first knew Caitlyn Jenner as an American sports hero. She won Olympic decathlon gold in Montreal in 1976 with a then record 8,618 points, and later became a television personality and a familiar face in one of America's most watched celebrity families. But behind that public image was a struggle she has said lasted for decades, even while fame kept rewarding the version of her the world already recognized. That tension is what gives her story its emotional weight. Fame made her recognizable everywhere, but it also made authenticity harder. She was expected to keep performing strength, confidence, and certainty while privately carrying questions about identity that never fully went away. Family life, media attention, and the sheer size of her public image added even more pressure. Then came the turning point. In 2015, after years of speculation and silence, Jenner publicly came out as transgender and soon introduced herself to the world as Caitlyn. The reaction was huge. Some people responded with support. Others turned her life into debate, gossip, or political symbolism. But the human truth underneath all of it was simpler. She was trying to live honestly after spending most of her life being seen in a way that did not fully reflect who she was. Her visibility reached people far beyond sports or reality television. For many viewers, Caitlyn Jenner was the first transgender person they had ever listened to at length. That visibility did not solve everything, but it forced conversations in living rooms, in media, and inside families that had never happened before, especially because her fame crossed generations. Her story is not just about transition. It is about what it costs to tell the truth after decades of silence. How much courage does it take to do that when the whole world already thinks it knows you? Laverne Cox. Art, survival, and dignity in public view. Before many viewers understood transgender lives in a personal way, they knew Laverne Cox as a performer with extraordinary presence. Her breakthrough as Sophia Bursette on Orange is the New Black changed that conversation. In 2014, she became the first openly transgender person nominated for a Primetime Emmy in an acting category, and around the same period she became the first transgender person to appear on the cover of Time. Those milestones gave her visibility, but they also gave her responsibility. But that visibility was built on a much harder private history. Cox has spoken about bullying, isolation, and the pain of growing up feminine in spaces that did not welcome that difference. Performance became more than ambition. It became a way to survive, to express what the world often tried to shame out of her, and to imagine a future with dignity. The pressure never disappeared. Hollywood had long treated transgender people as jokes, warnings, or side characters. That meant Cox was not simply trying to build a career. She was walking into an industry that had rarely given transgender women the right to be complicated, human, vulnerable, and fully seen. Then, the breakthrough came. Orange is the New Black gave millions of people a transgender character whose life carried humor, pain, love, fear, and injustice. Cox used that moment carefully. She did not ask the public for pity. She asked it for understanding. And that changed everything. Her impact was cultural as much as personal. She helped reshape how mainstream audiences talked about transgender women, especially Black transgender women, with more respect and more attention to lived experience. Later projects, interviews, and advocacy kept extending that influence. Her story is not only about firsts, it is about turning visibility into language and language into recognition. Jazz Jennings, a young voice that changed the conversation. Jazz Jennings became known to the public very early. She received national attention in 2007 after appearing on 2020 with Barbara Walters, and she later became widely known through I Am Jazz. Long before most people had heard a transgender child speak for herself on television, Jazz was doing exactly that. She was not speaking as an abstract issue. She was speaking as a child asking adults to listen. What made her story so powerful was its clarity. According to her family, Jazz expressed a female identity when she was very young. That early certainty did not mean the road was easy. She still faced bullying, misunderstanding, and the stress of being watched while growing up. In school and in public life, support was never guaranteed. But here is what mattered. Family acceptance changed the emotional shape of her journey. Her parents stood beside her, and that support gave viewers something many had never seen before: a transgender child being affirmed instead of silenced. That visibility helped move the public conversation away from fear and toward listening. Her turning point was not one single dramatic reveal. It was the steady decision to remain visible. Interviews, advocacy, books, television, and youth outreach all made Jazz one of the most recognizable transgender young people in America. She became proof that young voices could speak with insight, not confusion. Her family's foundation work also helped connect visibility with practical support. Her public impact reached beyond celebrity. She helped families imagine a different response when a child says who they are. She also showed that affirmation can be life-changing. Her story reminds people that authenticity does not always begin in adulthood. Sometimes the truth is present early, and the real question is whether the adults are brave enough to hear it. What do you think makes family support so important in an identity journey? Fallon Fox, a fighter whose life became part of a larger argument. Fallon Fox is remembered as the first openly transgender woman to compete professionally in mixed martial arts. That fact alone placed her in one of the most difficult public discussions in sports. But before she became a headline, she was a person dealing with gender struggle, rejection, and the need to build a life she could actually live. She has spoken about wrestling with identity from childhood and later facing rejection in family life. That kind of pain matters because it reframes her story. She was not stepping into competition as a symbol. She was stepping into it as an athlete who had already fought private battles long before entering a cage. MMA became part of the life she was trying to claim for herself. The turning point came in 2013, when her identity became widely public and her career moved from athletic competition into national controversy. Some people focused on inclusion, others focused on fairness. The conversation quickly became bigger than one fighter, and much of it was harsh. This part of the story has to be handled carefully. Fallon Fox's career raised difficult questions about policy, competitive equity, and how sport should respond when identity and regulation collide. Those questions are real, but her humanity is real too. She should not be reduced to a talking point, and respectful discussion requires remembering that. Her visibility forced sports audiences to confront an issue many had ignored. Even people who disagreed on policy had to reckon with the fact that transgender athletes are not abstract ideas. They are people with discipline, fear, ambition, and something to lose. Her story is not a simple lesson with an easy ending. It is a reminder that public debates become more responsible when they remember the person inside them. Chaz Bono, becoming himself beyond a famous last name. Chaz Bono grew up in one of the most recognizable entertainment families in America. As the child of Sonny Bono and Cher, he was visible long before he was fully understood. That kind of inherited fame can make identity even more complicated because the public thinks it already knows your story. Before living openly as himself, Chaz spent years navigating inner conflict in public and private. His life had already intersected with activism when he came out as a lesbian in the 1990s. Later, he began his transition in 2008, publicly confirmed it in 2009, and completed his legal name and gender change in 2010. Those milestones were personal, but they unfolded under celebrity scrutiny. The turning point for many viewers came with Becoming Chaz, the documentary that followed his transition and premiered at Sundance before airing on Oprah Winfrey's network. It gave people something rare, not a tabloid headline, but a human process. Then came another major public moment when he competed on Dancing with the Stars in 2011, becoming the first openly transgender man on a major network television show in that kind of mainstream entertainment space. That visibility mattered. It showed that transition was not the end of a life story. It was part of becoming more whole inside one. It also highlighted the importance of family learning in public. Cher's journey toward fuller understanding became part of the wider message that acceptance can grow. For many families, that mattered as much as the celebrity itself. Chaz Bono's story is not only about a famous family, it is about stepping out from inherited identity and choosing a truthful one. Andreja Pejić, fashion, displacement, and the search for a life that fit. Before publicly transitioning, Andreja Pejić became famous in fashion for androgynous runway work that challenged the industry's usual boundaries. She was discovered as a teenager in Australia and went on to model both menswear and women's wear, drawing global attention because the fashion world could not easily place her into one category. But the deeper story began earlier. Pejić was born in Bosnia and later grew up in Australia after her family fled war. That background of displacement matters. So does the bullying she has described while trying to survive adolescence in a world that kept demanding normality from her. Fashion became both refuge and stage. It gave her visibility, but not necessarily peace. Being seen was not the same thing as being understood. The pressure was intense because androgyny made her marketable, while authenticity felt risky. In a 2015 Vogue profile, she described being warned that transition could damage what the industry found special about her. That is a brutal kind of pressure. It tells a person that being fully seen might cost them the very career that first made them visible. Then, everything changed. After coming out publicly as a transgender woman, Pejić continued her career on new terms and became one of the first transgender models to land a major beauty campaign with Makeup Forever. That was bigger than fashion news. It signaled a shift in what beauty and womanhood could look like in mainstream imagery. Her story is not just about style. It is about refusing to stay half-legible for other people's comfort. And that changed the runway, too. It also widened the future for models who came after her. Carmen Carrera, turning public attention into dignity. Many viewers first knew Carmen Carrera through RuPaul's Drag Race and, later, through modeling and television appearances. That early visibility brought recognition, but it also came with misunderstanding. In those years, the public often treated drag, transgender identity, and performance as if they were all the same thing. For many people, Carrera's story helped expose the difference. She has spoken openly about how her early life in nightlife and drag culture shaped her understanding before her own transition. In 2012, she publicly came out as a transgender woman. As her visibility grew, so did the pressure. Media attention often wanted a label, a shortcut, or a sensational angle. Carrera pushed back against that, even when doing so, brought criticism. One of her most important public turns was not just in modeling, but in language. She became part of a larger conversation about respectful terminology and how transgender women are described in entertainment and news coverage. That may sound small. It is not. Language shapes dignity. Language tells people whether they will be recognized or reduced. Her modeling career and public appearances helped move her image beyond reality television, but the deeper impact came from insisting on self-definition. She made clear that being seen is not enough if the terms of visibility are insulting or careless. Her advocacy helped many viewers think more seriously about respect. Carmen Carrera's story shows how media misunderstanding can be challenged from inside the spotlight. Her journey is not just about transition or glamour. It is about demanding respect in the very spaces that once profited from confusion. How should media tell transgender stories with more dignity? These journeys were never only about transition. They were about pressure, family, image, risk, and the courage to live truthfully while millions watched. Which of these stories changed the way you think about identity, visibility, and courage the most today? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for more untold stories.